Hey, all, welcome back to the Defiant Spirit. I am super excited for this conversation. My guest, who's really not my guest, in many ways, he's a partner of mine in all things meaning, purpose, and resilience, has been on my podcast before, will be on it again. I'm not even going to do a long winded introduction other than to say Scott Shafman's in the house. What's up, brother?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. We're just going to just start talking about whatever you want to, but especially because for those who don't know, Scott is not a professional poker player. However, he's an avid poker player, and he just got back from the famous World Series of Poker. So we're going to talk poker, even though I don't know anything about poker. But as you'll quickly hear, this isn't really about poker. And if poker ain't your thing, stick around because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So tell us about your, you know, journey of poker leading up to the World Series.
Leading up to the World Series. Well, let me just kind of tell you about this a little bit about this experience that I had. I've been on this journey of trying to create the space that I need in order to be able to respond versus react. And I'm really trying to own this in all aspects of my life. Am I perfect at this? No, not by any means. It takes a lot of practice to do. But there's this space between reacting and responding. And I feel as though the more space that I give myself, the more authentic my response is. And my biggest struggle is I have ADHD, so I'm very impulsive. So it's like I want to be able to react right away, but I'm fighting myself to be able to just sit and respond. The reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason I want to talk about like my experience at the World Series of Poker, is I've had some time to think about what happened, and there were two specific hands. Okay. One was in the main event and one was not in the main event. It was in another tournament. But both hands that I played, I reacted and basically got knocked out. And I I'm okay with it. Because I'm not perfect at this, but it was good for me to recognize what happened. And for the main event, what happened was I was so focused on myself and my hand and in this and I thought I had the best hand, but I didn't pay attention to this other guy that was in the hand. I didn't, and normally I do. Normally I'm really good at paying attention and watching and trying to pick up information. But looking back on it, I didn't even think about what he had. And I didn't even give myself the time to respond. I just reacted immediately, went all in. He called and he had a flush, and my two pair ended up losing. And I sat there and I was in utter shock because I had been looking forward to this moment. I won a seat to the main event. Okay. It was,
So real quickly, so our
yeah,
listeners understand, you have to win a seat
you
to.
don't have to win a seat. It's a $10,000 buy in. Okay. There were over 10,000 people in the main event and broke records. But the way that I was able to enter, and a lot of people are able to enter, is there's other tournaments that lead up to the main event where you can win a seat. And I won a seat to get into the main event. There's been about, I would say about 45 days since I won the seat, where I've been really just trying to, prepare myself, be present, try to focus on being present, trying to enjoy this journey that I was on. And I really felt very strongly that I was going to do very well. And I think it's important to feel that way, going into whatever you're going to do. You have to believe that you're going to be able to do something, or else it'll never come true. But again, it's I look back in that moment when I reacted and I didn't respond. That was when I just thinking about that. It just it sucks, but it was good that I recognized what I did right away. So hopefully next time I'm in, if I am, if I have that opportunity again, or whatever it is in life, is being able to just really just sit and create that space and be able to respond. It's just it's where I'm
So
trying to focus my attention.
so you keep bringing up reacting, respond. Just so you know, if it is a first timer to my work in this show, it comes from Viktor Frankl's famous quote, but really more importantly, his philosophy: between stimulus and response, between things happening to us and our response, or our choosing our response, there's a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And, so what Scott is talking about is that when things happen to us, either we react, which comes from a lower version of ourselves, a fearful version, unconscious version, or we stop, we have some space, and that's what we're talking about right now is, can you expand the space? Because when you're in fear, you're in fight or flight, there's no space, like just whatever comes out, and that's reaction. And so you can't do both simultaneously. If you're in response, you're not in reaction, and vice versa. And so, Scott, what I hear you talking about is sitting at a poker table is all, it's not about a poker table. It could be traffic. You could be sitting in traffic. You could be sitting across from a client who's going ballistic. You could be at your mother, no, at one's mother-in-law's house or something like that. And if you haven't worked on yourself and worked, then there's no space. And whatever comes out is usually reaction. And so what I hear you saying is you use the World Series of Poker as an arena to practice expanding your space. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yes, and I appreciate you explaining that.
And so, where well, first of all, was everybody sitting around tables talking about expanding their space and mindful?
No, I mean, and I would have been looked at if I did bring it up, like I was, whatever, a little
Well, but it's
crazy, but
interesting because, like we've had many conversations that, mindfulness it's a tool. It's not like hocus pocus, right? You're not just sitting there praying, saying, God, please give me a flush. You're saying, I'm just taking the ingredients of the world around me. I'm not making anything up here, right? It's not like we're adding in some secret potion. All we're doing is we're looking at what's going on and we're paying attention to it. I mean, to me, that's what's so magical about this responsibility mindfulness stuff we talk about, is it's there. You're just reworking what's already there.
yeah, and utilizing those skills in all aspects of my life, and I just so happened I it was I also want to bring up the World Series of Poker just ended last night. Okay, you'll appreciate this. There, and I watched the last hand. Okay, and there was about a 2 to 3 minute pause before somebody, Jones, he's the guy that lost. He moved all in, but he waited. He spent 2 minutes pondering so much thought and so many different scenarios that I can almost guarantee you he has no regret in the decision he made because he didn't react, he responded. And that I failed in that, when I made that decision. But I think for himself, he should feel good because he didn't react. He was able to really just sit there and wait and think and play out all of the different scenarios. Okay. That his name is Dan Weinman. Dan Weinman, what his potential cards could be. And he ended up losing the hand, and Dan Weinman won the event. But it was just interesting because I did notice that.
And that was your undoing, was not expanding the space like he did or you could have.
Correct.
Win or lose, right? Because what I hear you
Win
saying,
or
if
lose.
you lost, it would have been a choice to respond versus this impulse, this move to go all in.
Correct.
Let's go back to that moment in a second. But first, just want to talk about poker real quickly because people hear poker and they think the last, or Vegas, a casino, the last place where like this kind of inner, deeper work could or should happen. But I argue that that's exactly where this kind of stuff needs to happen. If you're doing it at your church, your synagogue, your Zen center,
Mm-hmm.
oh, big K, like that's sort of what it's
It's
supposed to happen.
expected to be there, right? It's expected to happen in those moments.
And also this is Sunday Monday morality, because at least the way religion has worked in the West, Sunday, well, when Christians, you and I are both Jewish, but when Christians go to church, they go on Sunday. And so there's this culture of Sunday, I'm this way, but Monday I go to work and I'm this way. And they're not the same way. They're compartmentalized spirituality or ways of living. And in our last few podcasts, you did talk about, you coined the idea, the open floor plan. Like in our houses, we've moved towards an open floor plan. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this are moving to an open floor plan in the way they live, meaning I don't want to live one way at work, one way in my marriage, one way with my friends. I want to just live my authentic life. And if I can't do that in all settings, then it's not authentic. It's not an open floor plan. And that means it should happen in a casino as readily as it happens in my home.
Yes, and the connection that you have with people is real. Like in that, and that brought me joy. It brought me just a lot of happiness, and just having these deeper connections with people, because as far as being your authentic self, I think that is, whoops, my screen went black. I think that's important to go back to, because for so long I wasn't my authentic self. I didn't know who my authentic self was, but there was a lot of work that had been done, a lot of just diving into the type of person I am, and you helping me, with really learning that I'm an Enneagram 2, which is the helper, which is somebody that wants to serve, which is like that feeds my soul, and wants to help other people, right? So, but and being comfortable with that, right, and being vulnerable, and being sensitive, and all of that, like, but that took so much over the last 3 years, really just trying to dive into my work and listening and reading, doing a lot of stuff that to get me to this point. So it's hard. It's hard.
That's why it's called the work.
It is the work, but because of all that work, I got to this in this space, and it spilled over into this moment, and in Vegas and playing poker, and it made it that much better.
So I love this, and I love the venue for it, because I was just listening to a podcast, and it was much more of a sort of a woo-woo feminine spirituality, not female, but a feminine, more of a, like it was just more of getting into feelings and relationship, and that has its place. But I just come more toward this side of things, where like the arena, going into the arena of a sporting event. This is a sporting type event where you're not sitting at the table being vulnerable, sharing with the person next to you your childhood wounds and your struggle. No, what you're talking about is being vulnerable with yourself. Can I look at myself in this battle? What comes up in fear? To be able to look at that, right, and go, ugh, I don't like that part of me. And so you've been doing a lot of pre-work. So you get to the arena, to the battle, and what came up was some of that stuff again, right? Which was whatever caused you to be impulsive and to go all in. So let's unpack that, because I just want to, people listening to understand, like, this is gritty and raw and real and tough, but it's an inward conversation that you had. You didn't have this with the poker players around the table. So Scott Shafman, sitting at the table, goes all in and loses the hand. Let's rewind to that moment. Okay. Which one do you want to go to? The pre-event or the event?
The main event.
The main event.
That's the one.
So let's go back to the main event. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us, describe the experience before you go impulsively all in.
Okay. So basically, I had Ace King, which is probably one of the best starting hands. And I raised, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but the flop came King High. Um, and then the next card was an ace. So I have two pair, which is a very, very strong hand. On the turn, which after that ace, I ended up checking to this guy, and he bet 25,000, which was almost, I would say, half, maybe a third of what I had left. And I didn't process what I thought he could have and what he was representing, which he ended up having a flush based on the flop. So, because there were three spades on the board. Um, and I didn't even hesitate when he threw that green chip out, which was 25,000. I immediately shoved all in. That's the moment. That's the moment where I should have created the space to try to think about what he could be having. That's the work. That's where I lost control of my actions, and whether it was my impulsiveness, whether I was trying, whether it was fear, it could have been fear, because I wanted to scare him away. Right. I wanted to win the hand. So whatever that reaction was, it was very impulsive. And I just, and it was just the most, so deflating once I realized the mistake I made.
So let's unpack it, because you keep talking about it like you don't know the source. And if you don't know the source, then you don't have true power, because the power to choose one's response. And this is the work we do, is the work I do with, myself and with other people, because I can't know anybody else's why, their motivation. Big why over the course of a life, but the why in a moment. Why do I do what I do? And if I can't know my why, I'm powerless. And if I'm powerless, I'm a victim of my circumstances, meaning the cards will dictate what I do versus I will dictate how the cards play out. So let's go back to, because this is our work. Take back your power. You say, I don't know why I went all in. So let's get underneath that so you can discover your why, so that you can own that and be powerful. So go back. You said, I don't know. It was impulse. It was ADHD. Those are hows. Those are whats. Those aren't whys. What's underneath the impulse? In that moment, he's got a, well, you don't know, because you're not really thinking about what he has. You're thinking about what
Mm-hmm.
you have. I mean, that's what I heard you say.
I thought I had the best hand.
Okay.
So, um,
But then that doesn't explain why your
right.
hand pushed your chips in.
I don't know why.
Well, let's go back. Shut your eyes. Let's just shut our eyes. Take a deep breath. See yourself at the table. See the people around you. Smell the horrible smells of a
It's
casino.
disgusting scent.
Feel the experience. You're holding your ace, king, whatever. You have this, what's going on inside of you as you're holding these cards?
I am excited
I'm excited. And I'm excited because why?
because I think this is my hand. I think I'm going to win a big pot.
Okay. And so what? And then what? If you win the big pot, what?
Then I'm going to have a lot of chips.
Okay. And I've done 500 funerals. Nobody's ever bragged of going to the grave with a lot of chips. So then what?
Mm-hmm. Um, I see. I think my why for this was I really just I wanted to win. I
Okay.
wanted to win. I wanted to.
So I have a lot of
And
chips. So I have a lot of chips so I can win. And I wanted to what with that win? So what? Okay. Just keep playing it out. So what? So then you win. So what?
it wasn't even about the money and or the bracelet. I'll be honest with you. It was about this was my why. Okay. And I think I may have mentioned this to you. I wanted the platform to where I could be able to be help other people potentially, where would have a voice to where they could hear the journey and the work that I've done to get to this point, and that would have been so rewarding because not because of the money, not because of the bracelet. Okay. It comes back to my personality and serving
Okay.
and being able to have a platform to where I could be able to talk about how and then I would have been able to really talk about all the work that I've done that led to that moment, and
Okay.
that's my why.
So
That was my why for
okay, but
that.
we're not done. I'm not letting you off the hook with that because I have I want I have the chips. I want the chips. It's
Mm,
not about the chips. I want the bracelet and the victory, but it's not about the bracelet and the victory. I really want those things as a means to an end of using this as a platform. What is it a platform for? It's a platform to then be able to speak and reach a larger audience. Why do you want to do that? Because I want to help people. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to help people?
that's my enneagram. That's my purpose. I feel like that's where I want to spend my time and energy is being able to lift people up, to be able to help coach and help motivate and be help people become
Okay.
better human beings, better, more authentic.
Okay, so because for those who don't know, Scott's a extreme Enneagram two. There's subtypes. He's the most two-ish of the twos, which is to help, the helper, the giver, the other person, the relationship. So, and we do a lot of work around the Enneagram. So Scott's and the Enneagram is all about the why, and the why of the two is to give, to do exactly what you described. However, every type has a superpower, a light side, and a kryptonite, a shadow, a dark side. And that dark side of the two is what? What is the dark side of that? The shadow that casts.
Wanting to be seen
So there's this like,
in an inauthentic way.
so the high side is Mother Teresa. If you ever look at Mother Teresa, she is not physically somebody you turn to look at her physically. The face cracked and scarred and marred with the blood, sweat, and tears of sacrifice. But she's the most beautiful human being to ever walk the earth because her authentic giving comes out and she truly embodied the high side of a two. But an unhealthy two are oftentimes the most attractive outwardly appearance. Twos and threes are the appearance types. And if they don't do the inner work, they just become an outer shell of look at me, but not really the inner content of the true giving. I'm not saying you're either of those, but this is what you're up against at the poker table, sitting down, playing all this out. And by the way, probably a split second, right? Like this is not like you're just sitting there pondering this, but I just want you to hear, and I want people listening to hear, we're into the light and the dark of your Enneagram type. And if you don't check that, it starts to get away from you of look at me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so this is the shadow side of the two of that arrogance that I'm here to serve and give. There's even the statement of that, there's an I as opposed to just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And twos have to stand guard against this inflation of themselves. I'm the one. Twos have a God complex sometimes. I'm the source, right? Even if it's noble, like I'm not even saying it's not a noble cause. I have been chosen to bring the world to the poker, to bring to you the message from above. Again, that's a caricature. I know, but you can hear the reactivity that all of a sudden, if that's the vibe, come back to this moment, I gotta win.
Right.
I'm all in. Like there's this like I can even feel, even talking it through, I can feel this rush, urgency. Right. So we're trying to explain what the hell possessed Scott Shafman to not pause and to push. And the consequence is lost the hand. Okay, so rewinding. That was reaction. Now play it out as response. Coming back, what could you have done to respond?
Well, I would have been able to like process more of maybe putting him on a hand that could potentially beat me. And then maybe I could have folded and been left with chips versus being knocked out.
And I cannot argue that because I know nothing about poker. That's the what you would have done. Why would you have done?
Oh, why?
If we wanted to go back to your true why, what would you have done?
Well, then, okay, so why I would have done it to be able to survive that hand and then hopefully get to a point where I could again get to that, establish that platform to where I could be able to help other people. And that's really the space that I wanted to be in. I want to be able to serve in an authentic way. And I don't need the recognition. That's not what this is about at all.
Of course. I mean, that's the fear, right? That's the unconscious. The response, the love, the high side is, this is the work of the two right here. Humility is the pathway back for a two. And lots of twos go, humility, I'm humble. But when we're in the role of I am here to serve, there's a lack of humility. There's an I am the source, as opposed to, here's the mantra for a two: thy will, not my will. If you want me to lose this hand so that I can serve in some way that I can't even conceive of, then make me lose the hand. Because if my goal is to serve, who's Scott Shafman to say that winning the hand is the pathway? Because what if you won the hand, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and somebody listening on the other end wouldn't have had their aha, that wouldn't have then set in motion them changing their lifestyle to then be more present to their grandkids, and that grandkid becomes president of the United States in 30 years. I don't know. All I know is I will, not my will. Because twos and eights, I'm an eight, we're the most controlling types. We get it stuck in our head. And twos do it though, and it's harder because twos will do it from a place of, but I want to give. It's good. I'm just going to love you up and eat you up. And the universe is saying, that's not what I put you here to do. I put you here to serve. And maybe sometimes it's that, but maybe sometimes it's this. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The loss. Thank you. I don't know why. It's not what I wanted, but it's not about me.
Right.
I said I want to serve. So the source, God, is saying, okay. So Wayne Dyer, a teacher of mine, says he was here. He passed away. He said he was here to teach people how to live autonomous lives, right? Truly independent lives, independent of all of the stuff and whatever. And he said when he came into this world, he spent the first 10 years in an orphanage. And then once he went back and he realized that's what he needed. Basically, he said to God, I want to go teach people how to live autonomous lives. And God said, okay, you little shit, get your ass into an orphanage. Right? And spend the first 10 years learning how to be autonomous. Right? So I don't know if that's true, but for him, that's what the universe provided so that he could truly fulfill it. Scott Chapman's here to serve? I don't know. maybe God said, hey, lose this poker game, man. Okay, but coming back, that moment of, that humility,
Mm.
and also I see this with twos a lot, is just be present to what is, right? Because I feel like all that pressure, in some ways I'm partially responsible for that, all that pressure to use this as a platform for something bigger, in some ways took you out of the moment.
Maybe. Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't really my focus, but it was kind of like in the back of my head, like how cool that would have been.
But that's the why. Like, the why isn't something we sit around and tell ourselves all the time. It's driving the bus. So we have to just kind of get back to it. But the bottom line is, look, I just wanted people to hear the World Series of Poker as an arena for mindfulness practice, responsible, choosing your response living. And that's pretty remarkable. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Well, I'm glad I kind of, you got me to that point of where I needed to understand where my why was for that. So
I think it's important for people to hear, like whether you're on the golf course, whether you're playing poker, whether you're whatever it might be, right? Everything's potentially the arena to do this work. And it doesn't.
and to have meaning, and to have true meaning and purpose behind it. Not everything has to be, this huge thing, but if you can have a conversation with somebody, if you can see somebody, if you can listen to them, see them, make them feel better because you're hearing what they're saying, little things like that, that will have an effect on their lives, which will potentially have an effect on other people's lives as well.
So anything can potentially be the arena where we go step into it and we do the work, and we sometimes, rise up in victory, and sometimes we get knocked down and we pick ourselves up and we dust ourselves off, and we are, stronger and better for it. I know that I can just see it. Yeah, you lost, but in some ways you won, right? There's this other side of the loss, which is also meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to keep going and unpacking it. And thanks for sharing, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. That was fun. That was good.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks to everybody for listening. And we will talk to you next time. Jump over to defiantspirit.org where you can learn more. You can get past podcasts where Scott shares some other of his life nugget wisdom philosophy. And we will talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.